The desert stretched far in every direction, with golden sand that rolled like waves under the warm sun. The sky was clear and wide, and the wind carried a dry whisper that made the place feel older than time itself. A small transport ship had landed on a flat stretch of sand, leaving a faint mark behind. From it stepped a group of 4 humans wearing light desert gear. Amir walked in front. He was calm and steady, the kind of person others naturally followed. Behind him came Lena, who carried a scanner in her hand, her eyes moving quickly as she studied the readings. Sam followed with a backpack full of tools, while Rafi walked last carrying water and supplies. They had come from Earth to explore a distant planet that had only been visited a few times before. This planet was known for its harsh deserts and hidden ruins, buried under the sand. For days they had been hearing stories from the local settlers. The settlers spoke of an ancient crypt hidden deep in the desert. They said it had stood for thousands of years, untouched by time. They also warned of strange lights and voices that came from it during the night. Some claimed anyone who went too close never returned. Amir listened but did not believe in curses. He thought it might be a structure from an old civilization and that it could hold valuable records about the planet's history. They had been walking for hours that morning. The heat rose from the sand in soft ripples, and the horizon shimmered like a mirage. Lena kept checking her scanner. At last she stopped and pointed ahead. "There is a strong reading here," she said. "It could be the entrance." Amir nodded, and they moved toward the place she showed Dot. Soon they reached a low ridge of sand. As the wind shifted, it uncovered a dark shape. Sand slid away, revealing carved stone steps leading downward. At the bottom of the steps was a tall stone wall, half buried in the ground. The wall had strange markings that looked like flowing lines and circles. Sam brushed the sand away from one of the carvings. "These lines feel warm," he said with surprise. Amir placed his hand on the stone and felt it too. It was as if the stone itself was alive. The sun was dropping toward the horizon now, and the desert was cooling. Shadows stretched long across the sand. The 4 of them stood before the hidden wall and felt a strange stillness in the air. The wind seemed to stop. Rafi looked around and whispered that it felt like the desert was holding its breath. Amir studied the wall carefully. In the center was a large stone slab shaped like a door. Around its edges were the same flowing lines that glowed faintly in the dim light. It looked like the door had been waiting for someone to find it. They set their packs down and began clearing the sand from the doorway. Every scoop of sand revealed more of the carvings. Some showed figures standing under 2 suns. Others showed tall towers that looked like they were made of glass. There were also pictures of beings that looked almost human, shaking hands with taller figures, whose heads glowed like stars. When the door was mostly clear, Amir placed both hands against it and pushed. The stone felt heavy at first, but then it shifted, as if it had been waiting for that touch. The air around them shimmered like heat waves, and the faint glow of the carvings grew stronger. The ground gave a soft rumble under their feet, and a warm breeze flowed out from the crack in the doorway. It carried the scent of something old yet clean, like rain that had not touched the earth in many years. The door slid open enough for them to see the darkness inside. The walls just beyond the entrance shone faintly, as if lit from within. Lena stepped closer and peered in. The air inside seemed thicker than the desert air outside. Sam checked his tool pack, but Amir raised his hand. "We will only look inside for now," he said. "We do not know how stable this place is." Dot, as they stood there, the glow along the carvings pulsed once slowly, as though the wall itself had taken a deep breath. The desert around them felt strangely quiet. Even the faint wind had stopped. Rafi shifted his weight uneasily and glanced at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. Amir felt the urge to step inside, yet something His mind told him the crypt was more than just stone and carvings. It was almost as if it was aware of their presence. He looked back at his friends and saw the same thought in their eyes. None of them spoke for a long moment. Then, without a word, Amir reached into his pack and pulled out a small lantern. He lit it and held it high. The light reached into the opening, but did not show much, only more glowing carvings that seemed to curve downward into the earth. Lena adjusted her scanner again. "The readings are strange," she said softly. "It is not showing any depth at all. As if the space inside is not part of this planet." Sam frowned and checked his own equipment. "Same thing," he said. "It is like the inside does not exist until we enter." The sky grew darker, and the desert night began to wrap around them. The stars above were sharper here than anywhere else they had been on the planet. The light from the crypt cast a soft glow over the sand, making it look like silver waves under a frozen ocean. Amir felt a strange pull, a quiet invitation from the doorway. He knew they would enter soon. The mystery was too great to walk away from. Yet he also knew that once they stepped inside, the desert might never see them again. For now they sat beside the entrance, resting and drinking water. The wind began, again in soft gusts, carrying with it the faintest sound like a distant voice calling from deep within the earth. They did not speak of it. They only listened and wondered if the crypt had been waiting for them for thousands of years. The night had grown cooler, but the glow from the doorway seemed to hold a warm light that touched the sand around it. The four explorers sat quietly for a time until Amir finally stood and stepped toward the opening. The others followed without speaking. The air from inside the crypt flowed out like a soft breath, carrying with it a strange scent that none of them could name. It was neither dust nor stone, but something that felt alive. Amir placed his hand once more on the edge of the stone doorway. It was warm under his touch, and it seemed to hum softly. He took a slow breath and leaned his weight against the door. The stone moved a little more and a deeper opening appeared. The glow inside grew brighter, not harsh but gentle like moonlight. Together they pushed until the doorway opened wide enough for all of them to step through. The sound of the desert faded the moment they crossed the threshold. It was as if they had left the outside world behind completely. Inside, the air was still and heavy, yet not unpleasant. They found themselves standing in a wide hall. The walls were smooth and curved upward into a high arch. Every surface was marked with carvings. These carvings were not just flat shapes, but seemed to be etched with such depth that they almost moved when the lantern light passed over them. Sam raised his lantern higher, and the light revealed figures carved in rows. Some were human in shape, while others were taller with long arms and large eyes. Between them were symbols that none of them could read. Lena ran her fingers lightly over one of the carvings and felt a faint vibration as if the stone remembered. The hands that had shaped it long ago. As they moved deeper into the hall, the temperature changed. It became warmer, though they were walking downward. The air smelled faintly sweet. Their footsteps echoed softly, and each sound seemed to hang in the air longer than it should. At the far end of the hall, they reached a wide doorway leading to another chamber. This chamber was smaller, but the carvings here were even more detailed. On one wall, there was a scene showing two suns shining over a great city. The city had tall towers that sparkled as if made from crystal. In the center of the city stood a large building shaped much like the crypt itself. Raffi pointed to another part of the same carving. It showed two groups of figures facing each other. One group looked like humans in simple clothing. The other group was taller with smooth golden skin and bright green eyes carved so skillfully they seemed to catch the lantern light. Between the two groups was a small table on which rested a glowing shape. The image stirred something in Amir's thoughts, though he could not explain what it was. It felt like he had seen this moment before, but only in a dream. They walked on until they came to another stone door inside the crypt. This one was not carved with pictures, but with winding lines that seemed to flow like a river. Sam touched the lines and felt warmth again. As soon as his hand pressed against the center of the door, the glow in the lines brightened, and a low sound rolled through the floor. Without warning, the door behind them, the one they had entered through, began to move. It slid slowly shut with a sound like sand pouring into a jar. Raffi ran to it and tried to stop it, but it was too heavy. In a moment, it was closed completely. The hall grew darker, though the carvings on the walls still gave off a soft light. Lena looked at Amir. "What now?" she asked quietly. Amir kept his voice calm. "We go forward," he said. "This place was built for a reason. We have come this far." The next door began to move on its own. It slid open with a slow and steady motion until the space beyond was revealed. The room inside glowed faintly without the need for their lanterns. The light seemed to come from the floor itself, which was made of smooth stone in wide circles. Each circle was etched with tiny marks that glimmered like stars. They stepped inside carefully. The moment all four were in the room, the door closed silently behind them. None of them tried to stop it this time. The air here felt different again. It was warmer still, and the walls had a faint golden color dot. As they walked to the center of the room, they noticed that the marks on the floor formed patterns that seemed to shift when they looked at them from different angles. Sam knelt to study one pattern and then stood again quickly. The design had changed, as if it was alive. Suddenly a low vibration filled the room. It was not loud, but it was steady, and it seemed to pass through their bodies. The glow from the floor grew brighter, and the patterns began to ripple outward in slow waves. Lena clutched her scanner, but the numbers on the screen made no sense. "The readings are impossible," she whispered. "It is like the air is bending time." Itself, Amir listened to the faint hum and felt a strange sense of calm. Something in this place was waiting for them to understand it. He looked at the others and saw the same mixture of wonder and unease on their faces. The patterns on the floor began to move faster, and the light swirled in gentle spirals. It was almost beautiful, like watching a tide roll in slow motion. Then, the walls around them shimmered, as though made from water. Sam took a step back in surprise. "Are we still in the same place?" he asked. Before Amir could answer, the floor under their feet shifted in a way that felt both solid and fluid. They did not fall, but their sense of balance wavered. The walls continued to ripple until the carvings on them were no longer the same. What had been worn and ancient was now sharp and new, as though it had just been carved. Raffi's eyes widened. "I think we are seeing this place as it was long ago," he said slowly. Amir looked around. He felt the truth of Raffi's words, even though they made no sense. Somehow they had stepped not only into another chamber, but into another time. The air inside the crypt had changed. It no longer felt heavy with age. Instead, it was fresh, almost like standing outside after rain. The faint golden glow along the walls had turned bright and steady. The carvings were no longer faded. Every line was sharp and clear, as if the stone had just been touched by the hands of the builders. Amir slowly turned in a full circle. This was the same chamber they had just entered, but now it looked alive. The walls were smooth and warm to the eye. The patterns on the floor no longer shifted, but seemed fixed in a perfect design. He could hear faint sounds beyond the chamber, like the distant murmur of voices and the echo of footsteps. Raffi took a step toward the doorway they had used to enter, but stopped. Through the opening they could see the long hallway, but it was not dark and silent now. The glow was brighter, and figures were walking there. They moved with calm steps, their tall shapes almost touching the arched ceiling. Lena whispered without thinking. "Can they see us?" The figures passed without looking toward them. They were tall with golden skin that reflected the light like polished metal. Their eyes were bright green, and their clothing was made from smooth fabric that hung in long folds. They spoke in a slow language filled with soft tones that none of the humans understood. Sam stared. They looked just like the carvings, he said. In a low voice, Amir nodded slowly. He felt both wonder and unease. Somehow they were standing in the same place, but in another time. It was not like watching a picture or a memory. It felt real in every detail. The warmth of the air, the smell of something sweet, the faint sound of water flowing somewhere far off, all of it surrounded them. One of the golden beings paused in the hallway and turned slightly toward the chamber. For a moment, its bright eyes seemed to rest on Amir. He held still, unsure if he was truly being seen. The being tilted its head slightly and then lifted one long arm to point toward another door at the far side of the chamber. Before Amir could speak, the being turned away and walked on. The others in the hallway followed without pause. Soon the sound of their steps faded again. The four explorers stood together in the center of the room. Rafi was the first to speak. "I think they want us to go through that door." Lena looked uneasy. "Or maybe it is a warning." Amir studied the far door. It was made of the same smooth stone as the rest of the chamber, but had no carvings. Instead, it gave off a faint light, almost like it was shining from within. He felt drawn to it. They crossed the chamber carefully. The sound of their own footsteps was soft but clear. As they neared the door, the air around it felt warmer, almost like standing near a campfire on a cold night. Sam reached out his hand, then stopped and looked at Amir. "Should we open it?" Amir nodded once. Sam pressed his palm against the surface. The stone felt warm and smooth, and as soon as he touched it, the light grew stronger. The door slid upward without a sound, revealing a narrow passage beyond. They stepped inside. The passage curved downward in a gentle slope. Along the walls, lines of light traced patterns that seemed to guide them forward. The air was thicker here, but still fresh. They could no longer hear the voices from the hallway. After a short walk, the passage opened into a round room. This room was unlike any they had seen so far. It had no carvings or markings on the walls. Instead, the center held a large table made from some kind of crystal. The surface of the table was alive with light. Shapes and symbols floated above it, slowly moving and shifting in the air. Lena stepped closer. She could see that the symbols formed pictures. First there were stars, then the image of two suns shining over the same desert they had walked through earlier. Then came the image of the crypt itself, not buried in sand but standing tall and new. Around it were the golden beings working, building, shaping. Rafi pointed to another part of the shifting light. This one showed the same golden beings standing beside humans. The humans wore simple clothing and held small tools. Between the two groups was a glowing object shaped like an oval. The images changed again. Now the desert was covered in dark clouds. Strong winds moved the sand and slowly buried the city and the crypt. The golden beings were gone. Only the oval object remained, placed deep inside the crypt. Sam spoke quietly. "I think this is telling us that the crypt was made to protect something." Amir nodded. "And maybe to protect time itself." The light shifted once more, showing the inside of the crypt, filled with the same swirling patterns they had seen earlier. Then came an image of a person entering without the oval object. That person became trapped, caught between two versions of the same room. The picture repeated again and again, each time fading a little more as if the person was lost in the space. Between moments, Lena stepped back. "So if we do not have that object, we could be trapped here forever." Amir looked at the images one last time. His mind was working quickly now. The golden being in the hallway must have known they did not have the key. Maybe it was trying to guide them to where they could find it. The light over the table faded slowly until the room was dim again. The warm air felt still. Amir turned toward the others. We have to find that object. If we are in the past now, it might still be here somewhere in the city before the sands covered it. They left the round room and stepped back into the passage. The faint lines of light still guided their way. As they walked, Amir glanced back once. The crystal table was glowing again, but this time the light formed a slow pulse, like the beat of a heart waiting for their return. The passage from the crystal table room curved upward. The light running along the walls glowed more brightly now, as if leading them towards something important. The air stayed warm, carrying a faint scent like blooming flowers after rain. Each step felt lighter, as though the floor itself was helping them move forward. Soon the narrow passage widened into another grand hallway. Here the stone walls shone with a soft golden light, and the floor was made from smooth tiles shaped like perfect hexagons. Along both sides of the hall, tall figures moved with graceful steps. These were the builders, the golden-skinned beings from the carvings. Their green eyes caught the glow and reflected it like emerald glass. The humans slowed their steps, unsure if they were invisible observers or truly among these ancient people. The builders did not rush. They spoke to one another in a language of flowing sounds. Some carried tools that seemed to hum with energy, while others carried rolls of bright cloth or bowls filled with glowing stones. Lena whispered to Amir, "Look how they move." "They do not seem surprised to see us." Amir noticed the same thing. The builders glanced at them, but without shock or fear. It was as if the human's presence was expected. One tall builder, wearing a long band of silver across his shoulders, stepped away from the others and walked toward them. The humans felt a wave of calm as the figure approached. He stopped a few steps away and studied them with eyes that seemed to hold both light and knowledge. Then he slowly raised his hand and made a motion as if inviting them to follow. They walked behind him as he led them down the long hall. Other builders paused their work to watch, some nodding slightly as they passed. The group reached a wide doorway covered by a thin sheet of golden light, almost like a curtain made of sunbeams. The builders stepped through it without hesitation, and the humans followed. Inside was a high chamber with a round skylight that let in soft, warm sunlight from above. The walls were not carved here, but instead lined with smooth panels that shimmered faintly. In the center of the room stood a circular platform. On it rested the oval object they had seen in the crystal table images. It was about the size of two human hands, smooth and golden, with faint patterns flowing across its surface like gentle waves. The builder gestured toward it, then touched his own chest with his long fingers, as though explaining that it was important. Amir stepped closer to see it better, but he did not reach out. He remembered the image of the person trapped between time layers. Sam leaned toward Amir. "I think this is the key to the crypt." The builder nodded slightly, as if he understood Sam's words without hearing them clearly. Then he turned and pointed to a doorway on the far side of the chamber. Through it, they could see another hall, and beyond that, what looked like an open courtyard filled with sunlight. They followed him again, passing through the doorway into the courtyard. The sight before them took their breath away. This was the city from the carvings, alive and real. Towering crystal-like structures reached into the sky. Pathways of smooth stone wound between gardens full of strange plants, some glowing softly even in daylight. Water flowed in clear channels along the edges of the paths, feeding small pools where colorful fish swam. The air was filled with the hum of quiet machines and the gentle voices of builders moving through their daily lives. Some tended to the gardens, others worked on tall frameworks of crystal, and a few carried baskets of glowing stones toward the crypt entrance in the distance. Rafi whispered with awe, "This is what the desert used to be." Lena nodded slowly. "And we are standing in it." The builder who led them paused near a tall archway that opened toward a wide plaza. In the center of the plaza stood a raised platform with 3 more golden figures, each wearing bright bands of silver and blue. The leader gestured for the humans to approach the platform. As they neared, one of the figures on the platform stepped forward. This one was taller than the rest, and the green in his eyes seemed deeper, like sunlight through forest leaves. He looked at each of the humans in turn, then raised both hands. In a slow, clear voice, he spoke words they could not understand, yet somehow the meaning reached their minds. You are not of our time, yet you walk within it. The key you seek is here, but it is not given. It must be chosen. Amir glanced at the others. The tall figure continued speaking, and the meaning filled their thoughts. Only one of you may carry it. The one chosen must guard it, for it holds the thread that binds moments together. Without it, the path through time will close and cannot be found again. The figure stepped back, and the builder who had first met them gestured for them to return to the chamber with the oval key. As they walked back, Amir felt the weight of the choice pressing on him. Who would carry the key, and why only one? Inside the chamber, the key still rested on the platform. The patterns on its surface glowed more brightly now, as if aware of their presence. The builder stood nearby, watching silently. Amir turned to his friends. We do not know what this will do, but if one of us takes it, the others may not be able to follow through the same path. Sam's eyes stayed on the key. You should take it, Amir. You are the one who brought us here. Lena nodded in agreement. You are the one they seem to look to. Rafi looked uneasy, but did not speak against it. Amir stepped up to the platform and slowly reached out his hands. As his fingers touched the key, the warmth from it flowed into him like sunlight through his skin. The patterns on its surface shifted into shapes he almost understood. A quiet hum filled the chamber, and the builder gave a single nod of approval. When Amir lifted the key, the light in the room grew brighter for a moment, then settled into a steady glow. The builder pointed toward the main hall of the crypt, the direction they had come from before the time shift began. The meaning was clear. They now had what they needed to return, but the path would not stay open forever. Amir turned to his friends, the golden key secure in his hands. Let's go. The warm golden glow from the key spread across Amir's hands as he held it close. Its surface continued to shift with soft moving patterns, like ripples across calm water. He could feel a quiet energy in it, steady and calm, as if it was alive. The builder who had guided them so far stood silently at the edge of the chamber. His bright green eyes seemed to search each of their faces before he slowly turned toward the exit. Without speaking, the builder began walking down the long hall. Amir and the others followed, their footsteps echoing gently against the smooth floor. The walls of the hall now seemed brighter, showing carvings they had not noticed before. These carvings told a story in a long flowing sequence. The first carvings showed the great city in its prime. 2 suns shone high above it, and crystal towers stretched toward the sky. The streets were full of both humans and golden-skinned beings working side by side. There were gardens, flowing water, and strange machines that floated through the air. The next carving showed a change. The sky grew darker. The suns were dimmed by thick clouds, and strong winds began to sweep across the land. Sandstorms rose higher than the towers and began to bury the streets. The builders and humans worked together to save what they could. In the final carvings, the city was almost gone beneath the sand. Only the crypt remained standing, its doorway glowing like a beacon. The golden beings placed the oval key deep inside it and sealed the entrance. Above them, a strange swirling light appeared in the sky. It looked like a window to another place, its edges shifting like water. The builders stepped into it one by one until the city was empty. The builder stopped before the last carving and placed his hand on the image of the swirling light. He turned toward Amir and the others, then spoke in his slow, calm language. Though they could not understand the words, The meaning still reached their minds. This place was built to hold our knowledge and to guard the flow of time. The storms that came were not only of sand, but of time itself. The balance was breaking. We created the anchor so that history would not be lost, and so that one day others could find it and keep the thread safe. Amir felt the meaning settle deep inside him. The crypt was more than a tomb. It was a bridge between moments, holding together the past and the future. The key was not just a way out. It was part of the anchor that kept the two worlds connected. The builder's eyes softened, and more images filled Amir's mind. He saw the builders working inside the crypt, shaping each hall and marking each carving so that anyone who entered would understand the story. He saw them testing the anchor, stepping between moments in time, and returning with knowledge from ages long gone. And he saw the final day, when the storms grew too strong and they had no choice but to leave. Rafi took a slow breath. "They left this for us to find," he said quietly. Lena glanced at the key in Amir's hands. "And now we have it. But if it holds the flow of time together, what happens if we take it away?" Amir looked at the builder. "Do we need to put it back?" The builder shook his head once, then pointed toward the far end of the hall. Again, the meaning filled their thoughts. "You must carry it beyond this place, so that the thread may stretch forward. The anchor will remain, but the path will need a guardian." Sam gave a small smile. "So you are the guardian now, Amir." The hall ended at a tall doorway. Beyond it was a room they had not seen before. This chamber was open at the top, letting in the warm light of the two suns. In the center stood a round pool of water that shimmered like glass. The surface reflected not only the room above, but also strange shapes that did not belong. Stars, towers, and even a glimpse of the desert under a single sun. The builder walked to the edge of the pool and gestured for Amir to come forward. As Amir stepped closer, the surface of the water began to ripple slowly. A vision formed within it, the crypt as it would look far in the future, buried again in deep sand, the doorway hidden from sight. The image shifted to show the four of them stepping out into the cool night air, the desert stretching wide under the stars. Rafi stared at the vision. "That is our way home." The builder placed one hand gently on the water's surface. The ripples grew larger, and the reflection brightened until the light filled the entire chamber. Amir held the key tightly. The hum within it grew louder, steady like a heartbeat. The builder stepped back and raised both arms. His green eyes met Amir's one last time, and the meaning of his final message reached them clearly. "The path is open. Go and carry the thread forward." A warm wind swept through the chamber, and the light from the pool rose around them like a veil. The air shimmered, and for a brief moment, Amir felt as though the floor had vanished beneath his feet. The sound of the wind became the sound of quiet desert air. When the light faded, they were no longer in the open chamber. They stood again in the crypt's main hall, the walls dim and ancient once more. The carvings were worn, the air was cool, and the glow from the patterns had faded almost completely. Behind them, the doorway to the chamber they had just left was closed and covered with dust as if it had not been touched for centuries. Lena looked around in awe. "We are back in our own time." Rafi glanced at the sealed doorway. "And the builders." Agon. Sam turned to Amir. "But we still have the key." Amir looked down at it. The patterns on its surface still moved slowly, and the warmth was still there. He slipped it carefully into a pouch on his belt. Whatever its true power was, it now rested in his hands. The way out lay ahead, but Amir knew the crypt had more to reveal before they left. The air felt different now, as if the walls themselves were listening. Somewhere deep in the stone, the heartbeat of the anchor still pulsed, steady and sure, and the desert above waited for them to return. The silence inside the crypt felt heavier now. Amir could hear the soft beat of his own heart and the faint hum from the key inside his pouch. The air was cooler than before, and the faint smell of old dust filled their lungs. Somewhere far above them, the desert was waiting. Lena touched the wall beside her. The carvings here were faint and cracked, their edges worn smooth by time. "We should find the exit quickly," she said quietly. "We do not know how long this place will stay the same." Raffi nodded. He had noticed it too. Since they had returned from the chamber of the pool, the hall behind them looked slightly different. A pillar that had been straight now leaned a little to one side. The floor stones had shifted as if years had passed in only moments. Sam led the way forward. The hall opened into a wide space they remembered passing before, but now it was darker. The ceiling lower, and the torches they had lit earlier were gone. Instead, soft blue light shone from thin cracks in the walls. The light moved in slow waves, like the glow of the key but colder. "Do you think we went further into the past or the future?" Raffi asked as he stepped carefully over a broken slab. Amir shook his head. "I do not think it is either one. I think time is changing around us." The floor trembled under their feet, only for a heartbeat, then stopped. From somewhere deep within the crypt came a low sound, like stone grinding against stone. The blue light flickered and shifted to a warm golden shade for a moment before fading back. Lena looked around quickly. "This is not good. If the crypt is moving between times, we could get trapped in a moment where there is no way out." They hurried forward, their footsteps echoing strangely, as if the sound was bouncing from walls that were not always there. Twice they turned corners that seemed familiar, only to find them leading into new halls they had never seen. The crypt was not just shifting in time, it was changing its shape. The next chamber they entered was wide and round, with tall columns arranged in a circle. Between the columns were open doorways, each leading into a different hall. But as they watched, one doorway shimmered and faded, replaced by a blank wall. Another doorway grew brighter, showing the same swirling light they had seen in the builders' carvings. Sam frowned. "We need to choose carefully." Amir took out the key. The patterns on its surface moved faster now, and the warmth pulsed with a rhythm. He stepped slowly around the circle, holding the key toward each doorway. When he reached the third one, the patterns glowed brighter, and a faint golden thread of light reached from the key into the doorway. "This way," Amir said, stepping through. The hall beyond was long and straight, its floor smooth and polished. But as they moved, the walls began to ripple like water. Faint shadows of other halls appeared over them, one with smooth metal walls, another with rough stone, and another with walls covered in fresh carvings that looked newly made. "It is all here," Raffi whispered in awe. The crypt, and every time at once, the ground shook again, stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a faint crack ran down the wall beside them. The hum from the key grew louder, and Amir felt it pulling him forward, as if guiding them towards something important. They reached another chamber, smaller than the last. In its center stood a raised platform with a round stone table. On the table was a crystal sphere the size of a fist. Inside it swirled the same golden and blue light they had seen before, twisting together in slow spirals. Amir stepped closer. The moment his hand touched the edge of the table, the sphere began to glow brighter. Images flashed inside it. The desert at night, the crypt buried in sand, the four of them walking under a single sun. Then the image changed to show the crypt's entrance half buried but still open, the wind blowing sand across its steps. Lena stared. "That is the way out." But the vision shifted again. Now it showed the entrance fully buried, the sand piled high, the doorway gone. The wind howled through the desert, leaving no trace of the path. The sphere dimmed, and the hum from the key became urgent, almost like a warning. Amir understood. The exit would not stay open forever. They had to move quickly. They left the chamber at a run. The halls twisted and shifted again, and Amir had to keep checking the pull of the key to stay on the right path. Twice they nearly ran into walls that appeared suddenly in front of them. Once they stepped into a hall that was bright and new, only to watch the walls grow darker and cracked in seconds. Finally, they saw it, the main staircase leading upward. The steps were dusty, and the air above them was faintly cooler. The way out was close, but as they climbed, the walls on either side began to shift again. One moment they were smooth stone, the next they were covered in fresh carvings, and then they became metal, shining, and strange. The steps themselves trembled as if the stone could not decide what age it belonged to. Halfway up, the light above flickered and went dark. In the shadows, a low sound rose again from deep below. It was the grinding of stone, but also something else. A pulse, steady and deep, like the heartbeat of the crypt itself. Rafi grabbed Amir's arm. Hurry! They ran the last steps and reached the top. Before them was the great doorway they had entered through days or moments ago. But now, instead of solid stone, the doorway shimmered with golden light. Beyond it, they could see the desert under a pale sky, the sand shifting in the wind. The key grew warm in Amir's hand. He stepped forward, holding it high. The golden light of the doorway brightened, and the shifting edges grew still. The path was open. One by one, they stepped through. The moment Amir's foot touched the sand, the hum from the key faded to a soft whisper. Behind them, the doorway of light flickered once, then vanished. The cliff face was bare stone again, as if no crypt had ever been there. The desert wind brushed past them, carrying the dry scent of sand and sun. Above, only one sun shone, bright and steady. We made it, Lena said softly. Amir looked at the pouch, where the key rested. They had escaped, but the journey was not over. The crypt might be gone from sight, but somewhere deep in the sand its heartbeat still pulsed, and the thread of time still stretched forward, now in their hands. The desert stretched before them in every direction. Waves of golden sand rolled under the bright sun. The wind carried dry whispers across the dunes. Amir shielded his eyes and looked back at the cliff where the crypt had been. There was nothing. Now, but plain rock. No sign of the golden doorway remained. We must keep moving, Lena said. If the crypt truly changes with time, it could return here at any moment. And if it does, we might get pulled back in. Rafi nodded and checked the water. Skin they had carried from their camp. The water was warm and almost empty. We need to find shade before night. The desert can turn cold faster than we think. Sam took the lead. He remembered a dry riverbed not far from here. Its walls could give them some shelter from the wind. They began to walk, their feet sinking into the soft sand. Every step felt heavier under the heat dot. Amir kept the pouch with the key close to his chest. The metal was no longer glowing, but it was still warm. It felt like it was watching the world around them in its own way, sensing things they could not. After an hour of walking, they reached the riverbed. The sand here was packed harder, and the shade from the low walls gave them a little relief. They rested and shared the last drops of water. We need to find an oasis, Lena said quietly. Without water, we will not last long. Before Amir could answer, the wind shifted. A strange sound came with it, faint at first, like soft footsteps in the sand. Sam frowned and stood up. Did you hear that? They all listened. At first, there was only the whisper of wind. Then the sound came again, closer. Now, it was the crunch of sand under steady steps, slow and careful, as if whoever made them was trying not to be heard. Rafi scanned the top of the riverbed wall. I see nothing, he said, but his voice was tense. Amir tightened his grip on the pouch. The warmth from the key had grown stronger again, pulsing like a heartbeat. That meant danger was near. "We keep moving," Amir said. "Whoever or whatever is out there, we should not wait for it." They left the riverbed and began walking again, this time faster. The sun was sliding lower in the sky, painting the dunes in shades of red and orange. The sound of footsteps followed. Them, always just far enough away that they could not see the source. Night came quickly. The heat faded, replaced by a sharp cold. Stars appeared in the clear black sky. The desert was silent, except for the faint sound of sand shifting in the wind. "We cannot walk all night," Rafi said. "We need to rest, but we must stay hidden." They found a small hollow between two dunes and settled there. Sam gathered dry brush from the riverbed for a small fire. The flame was weak, but gave them a little warmth. They took turns keeping watch. When it was Amir's turn, the moon had risen high. The cold air made every breath feel sharp in his chest. He sat with the pouch in his lap, watching the sand. That was when he saw it. A tall shadow moving along the edge of the dune. It was not shaped like a person. It was thin, with long arms that reached almost to the ground. It moved in slow steps, stopping now and then as if searching for something. Amir's hand went to the key. The warmth from it spread quickly, and a faint golden light leaked through the pouch. The shadow froze and turned its head toward him. Before it could move closer, Amir shook Rafi awake. "We have to go." Now they woke Lena and Sam, and without wasting a moment, they began running across the cold sand. Behind them, the shadow followed, its long arms swaying. It made no sound, but Amir could feel its presence pressing closer with each step. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of a rocky plain. Here the sand gave way to flat stones cracked by heat. They slowed to catch their breath, but the shadow was still behind them. "It wants the key," Lena said between breaths. "That is why it follows us." Sam looked at Amir. "Can you use it?" Amir was not sure. The key had guided them inside the crypt, but here in the open desert, he did not know what it could do. Still, he pulled it from the pouch. The patterns on its surface shifted slowly, glowing with a soft light. The shadow paused a short distance away, as if the light from the key held it back. Amir raised the key higher, and the glow spread outward, casting a circle of gold on the ground around them. The shadow stopped at the edge of the light, unable to cross. "We rest here until morning," Amir said. "But we must not let the light fade." They sat in the circle, taking turns holding the key so the glow stayed bright. The shadow stayed outside the light all night, moving slowly around them like a predator waiting for its chance. When the first light of dawn touched the desert, the shadow began to fade. By the time the sun rose, it was gone, leaving only the endless sand and stone. They were tired, but there was no time to waste. Amir knew the shadow would return when night fell again. The key had protected them, but it could not hold back danger forever. "We must find the oasis," Lena said firmly. "And then we must learn how to use the key before the shadow catches us again." They started walking once more, the sun climbing higher. Somewhere ahead, water waited, and perhaps answers too. Behind them, the desert was quiet, but Amir knew the shadow's hunt was not over.